Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the home stretch of day one of prime time. I'm glad to see that a lot of you survived this far. And especially welcome to all those of you following via our live stream feed, which of course is brought to you by the Canada Media Fund. The Canada Media Fund. We love the Canada Media Fund. And just, yeah, why not? In just a few moments, we'll be hearing from the inaugural director of the brand spanking new Indigenous Screen Office. But first, I'd like to invite Rina Fraticelli, of course, from Women in View, to the stage. I'm sure you're all aware of Rina's excellent initiatives to advance women directors, in particular 2 times more and 5 in Focus, both of which, of course, the CMPA was proud to sponsor. Now, we are pleased to be supporting Women in View on their latest project, called the Diversity Toolkit, and I would welcome Rina to the stage to tell us all about it.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to the CMPA. 2 years ago, Women in View on this very stage announced a 2 times more strategy to double the number of women directing scripted television. It's a bit early to tell. We'll have some definite numbers in the fall, but thanks to so many individuals and organizations across the country, so many of you in this room, I think it's safe to say that we're seeing signs of significant change and momentum. And I'm happy to continue that momentum today and introduce you to Women in View 2018 5 in Focus directors. These are women who were selected by a stellar panel of producers and broadcasters who felt that these women were worthy of having a spotlight shone on them. And I hope you'll take note of them: Martine Blue, Stephanie Clattenburg, Kumbi, Gia Milani, Harmony Wagner, all women from the Atlantic region, and make a point to get to know them, to seek them out, and to bring them into your shop, to bring their talents to your projects. I'm especially happy today to announce, as Max said, our Media Plus Gender Diversity Toolkit. This toolkit, which I think there are on various tables, but we can get you more, was developed in participation with virtually every organization in the industry, and we're so incredibly grateful for the input, the feedback, the research that was brought to us. It was designed to energize, to inspire, to give each of us a bit of a nudge, a bit of a prompt to be the change we'd like to see in our industry. So I hope you'll take them back to your teams, to your productions, share them. We'd be happy to help you create a discussion or a workshop or a panel around them if that's at all appealing to you. It's free, it's available in English and in French, it's available online and hard copies. And finally, I just want to leave you with this short trailer, our salute to just a few of the many, many, many talented professional women holding up half the sky in our industry. Thank you and enjoy.
Say
Thank you, Rena. Especially in this important cultural moment in both our industry and society more writ large, the work you do is relevant, important, and as impactful as ever. So thank you for that. I'd now like to invite a special guest to the stage to introduce the new director of the Indigenous Screen Office. Her name is Danielle McGurry. She is a producer intern at Eagle Vision based in Winnipeg. So please join me in welcoming Danielle to the stage.
Thank you, Mark. I was afforded the opportunity to work at Eagle Vision thanks to the CMTPA's Diversity Mentorship Program, as well as the incredible passion and generosity of Lisa Meaches, Kyle Irving, and Rebecca Gibson. While I've been asked to introduce the inaugural head of the Indigenous Screen Office, I've also been asked to share a little bit about how I came to be in front of you today. Growing up, I was not exposed to Indigenous culture or beliefs. Like so many of Canada's Indigenous peoples, my family's culture was stripped over generations. I only rediscovered and attempted to embrace my roots later in life, but it took me many years of struggle to understand where does a queer English and French-speaking Indigenous Irish Canadian athlete fit in. What I discovered was that I didn't fit in, and this frustrated me. Where were all the role models I was to look up to? How could I look to my family for guidance when they themselves were stripped of their identities? I didn't have to look far before finding Eagle Vision's remarkable work. They've made it their priority to tell authentic Indigenous stories from authentic Indigenous voices, and they have done so by challenging systemic barriers, supporting young artists, and respecting cultural protocols. This was the organization I was searching for, and I knew that I needed to be a part of it. Now, after 8 months with Eagle Vision, I can happily say that my path is clear. Indigenous narratives need to be told by Indigenous voices, and I, with my unique perspective, am one of those voices. The introduction of the Indigenous Screen Office presents countless exciting new opportunities for Indigenous filmmaking. With the realization of this national organization, thanks to the efforts of Minister Melanie Joly and Valerie Creighton at the CMF, the APTN, Telefilm Canada, the CMPA, the CBC, and the NFB, myself and other Indigenous artists can move forward with confidence that our voices will be heard, respected, and valued in Canada's screen-based sector. It is with great honor that I present to you the Director of the Indigenous Screen Office, Jessie Wente.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I look forward to working with you in the future, and I look forward to thousands of other Danielles in the future. So good afternoon. What a difference a year makes. If memory serves me right, it was about a year ago that I was here on this stage talking about the importance of stories and their role in how we understand each other, how they shape our society and our culture, and urging for more Indigenous stories to be told by Indigenous creators. And now I stand before you as the director of the newly created Indigenous Screen Office, an office that is meant to do exactly that: support, develop, and assist Indigenous storytellers in telling Indigenous stories. I want to thank all of the founding organizations that have contributed to the establishment of the Indigenous Screen Office. All the people contributed to the studies in advance that asked or demanded this office to be created, and especially to Valerie Creighton at the CMF, who's been incredibly supportive throughout this entire process. Now, I have to be honest, when I was here last year, I would not have predicted that I would be back here standing before you in this role. But that is, of course, life, and I couldn't be happier to be here now with you and taking on this new challenge. Now, there are still a lot of questions about the Indigenous Screen Office, and I will say this is day one, so the office has been open for 1 day. The office is also standing entirely in front of you. So I ask for a little patience, you know, because obviously it's my first day, and I don't even have a phone number or business cards or an email address to send you all to, but that will all come. So not all the answers that I think a lot of people, for the questions that you may have, are available right now, because I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily know what the answers are at this moment. But as this office evolves, I think those answers will become clear as we get further along this journey. But let me start with perhaps the biggest question this office still faces, which is why? Why do we need an Indigenous Screen Office? Now, I hope that we don't really need to answer this, but given the work that so many of you have started, given that so many existing organizations such as Telefilm, the CBC, the NFB, the CMF, the CMPA have started to build their capacity to tell Indigenous stories and recognize Indigenous creators, I understand why the why question still exists. And while I could refer you to just watch the YouTube video of my speech last year, what I'd actually propose today is that even those that ask this question in earnest, who really want to know, actually already know the answer to this. We know the answer because it's already a big part of our industry. Let me put it this way. In the history of Canadian screen culture, and not just Canadian screen culture, but all over the world, stories about Indigenous people have largely, and by largely, I mean like the 99th percentile of largely. Those stories have been told by non-Indigenous peoples. Now, I again hope we understand why this is an issue, but I would propose that, once again, everyone in this room already knows the answer to why this is an issue. Because we've created a system to make sure this exact thing doesn't happen in this country, for example, with Quebecois culture. How would Quebecois feel if the near entirety of their cinema, of all those incredible stories that have been such a rich part of our shared screen culture, how would that change if 99% of those stories had been told by Anglos? Or if every Quebecois script was judged by an entirely English jury? We actually already know the answer. That would never happen, is the answer. We've built huge organizations, huge structures, funders to prevent that exact thing from ever happening, both for French-Canadian screen culture, but also English-Canadian screen culture. And yet, when it comes to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, that's exactly what we have allowed to occur for decades. And we exist very much in the consequences of those decisions. So an intervention is needed. It's long past due, and if we really looked, the truth is we've known that's been true for quite a while. So into this space is where the Screen Office, the Indigenous Screen Office, grows. Now, that is not to say my goal is to build another Telefilm or another SODEC. Boy, no. Rather, this is an opportunity to create something new, something different, that exists alongside our existing frameworks with the advantage of seeing how those have worked, where those have had challenges, and where this office can work to change the nature of Indigenous stories on screens in Canada, and to support what is already a vibrant community of screen storytellers that is not lacking in capacity, but has been lacking in opportunity. After extensive consultations and ongoing advocacy, this office has been created, an office the Indigenous screen community has been asking for years. Its stated purpose, to develop and advocate for Indigenous stories by Indigenous creators, and that's what we will do. But as I said, this office is new. It is far from a permanent fixture in our creative landscape yet. Just to give you an idea, the funding for this office is currently only promised for 2 years. And the current budget is exceedingly small, a rounding error in the budgets of this country's largest cultural bodies. So my first priority in my role as director of the Indigenous Screen Office is to find permanent funding so that this office's future becomes reality and that we can start building the office's capacity to serve our community in all of the ways it is seeking. I will be building an advisory circle of Indigenous industry professionals and arts administrators to help guide the growth of the office and to help me create the strategic, administrative, and financial frameworks for the ISO's long-term growth and stability. This advisory circle will be multinational, representing both regional diversity and industrial diversity, as this office will support storytelling on all screens, the ones in the theaters, in your homes, and indeed in your pockets. From there, I'll be working on funding, strategy, and planning as the office gets up and running, and eventually the office will have a physical location, so there will actually be an office to the Indigenous Screen Office and not just my basement in Etobicoke. And I hope, in fact, down the road, we will have more than one physical location. So my first and largest priority is to establish the ISO, get it funded, and provide the framework, org structure, and strategic planning for it to manage growth while moving as quickly as possible to meet the needs of the community. I will be talking to many people, seeking guidance, input, help, and of course, information to help guide me in the office to where it needs to have the most impact on our screen culture and our society at large. The range of activities and programs the office may eventually be involved in will be determined along the way and will all ultimately serve the purpose of furthering narrative sovereignty for Indigenous screen storytellers. I'm excited by the opportunity this office presents for the Indigenous screen community, and I thank all of you in advance for the work we will accomplish and for the support in this office mission. Don't forget you applauded when I came out. So when I come for the first meeting, remember that you did that. And I'm sure I will be speaking with many of you in the days, weeks, and months to come. And I promise I will have business cards and an email very soon. I'm excited for what this means for our industry, what this means for our country, and our shared experience on this land. And I look forward to working with all of you to create a better future. Miigwech.